What would you expect to happen if you tried to sell an NFT of Darth Vader, Superman, or maybe an Hermès handbag? We'll have the answer for you coming up on For Immediate Release. Another fine podcast from the FIR Podcast Network.
This is For Immediate Release, the podcast for communicators.
Hi, everyone. This is Shel Holtz.
And this is Neville Hobson. Welcome to For Immediate Release, episode 222, the short-form edition during the week in between the monthly episodes. We have a rather intriguing story today. Yes, it's about the metaverse, but it's to do with copyright. A brand called Hermès, a name that will be familiar to many of you, doing something quite interesting against someone they're alleging is infringing their copyright.
We've talked a lot about NFTs on this show. We can barely do a monthly episode without talking about NFTs because they're big and they continue to expand and there are new uses for them. But the biggest use continues to be artists monetizing the digital art they created that they've never been able to monetize in the past. And there is an artist named Mason Rothchild who has created what he is calling Meta Birkin pieces of art. I had never heard of the Birkin before, but it is a product from Hermès or Hermès, however you care to pronounce that, French company.
Hermès.
Thank you. I figure somebody over on that side of the pond would be more familiar with how to pronounce that. So he is selling these. They're artworks that are representations of trademarked products that are made by this company. And the company sent him a cease and desist. It is a trademark violation. He sent them back a letter, which has been reproduced on a website called High Snobiety. Great title. He says, "So I got your cease and desist letter. Well, I'm sorry if you were insulted by my art. As an artist, I will not apologize for creating it. Now, as you are aware, the First Amendment gives me every right to create art based on my interpretations of the world around me." And we'll have a link to the full post here so that you can read the entire article. But that's the point that I wanted to get to. Because, first of all, this is a French company where the First Amendment holds no sway. Second of all, the First Amendment does not protect him from trademark violation. There is a tremendous misunderstanding of what the U.S. First Amendment, for those of you in an international audience, in the Bill of Rights, actually means. And essentially what it means is the government can't arrest you for what you say. It means nothing else. It just means that you cannot be arrested by the federal government for what you say. A state government can't do it either because federal government rules supersede state government rules. But that's it. It doesn't mean that you can't be disinvited from speaking on a college campus or have a bunch of people say, don't read this idiot's remarks or listen to this idiot's podcast. So he has, I think, shaky legal ground here. And there was another article. This was on a website called The Fashion Law, a website dedicated to legal issues around fashion. And they break it all down. And pretty much they agree with me. He doesn't have a leg to stand on, but because NFTs and the metaverse are the Wild West, it will probably be a wild legal ride anyway.
Yeah, it will. I mean, I found it quite intriguing, particularly the reference of the artist to the First Amendment. As you've explained it in some depth, the initial reaction I had was this is something specific to the United States, so it wouldn't really matter elsewhere in the world, although the lawsuit is taking place in the United States. Now, again, none of the details are known, but I would imagine it's a US-registered subsidiary of Hermès who is suing the guy in court in LA. And we'll see where this goes. But I think what I've seen in much of the reporting is that this is the first major example of a brand taking action against the unauthorized use of its trademarks, as they allege. And I bet you we're going to see a lot more of this. It's quite intriguing that someone, in the case of this artist, believes he could use the defense he is attempting to use to win this case. Much of what I've seen online talking about this is generally agreed that it's very likely that Hermès will prevail if it does come to a lawsuit. The reality is that, from what I've read, notwithstanding what the artist claims, he has gone ahead and created digital representations of the Birkin handbag that Hermès makes. And these things sell for thousands of euros, pounds, and dollars, wherever you can buy them. They're a high fashion item. And his digital art, from what I've seen, is truly outstanding. I have to say, it really is nice what he's done. But he has done it without permission of the copyright owner. And I think that's the crux of the matter, I suspect, from a legal point of view. So it will be interesting to see how this plays out if it gets to court.
Just imagine if he had done this with Mickey Mouse. Would he have a leg to stand on against Disney? Here's the thing. You can look at the Andy Warhol painting of the can of Campbell's soup. Would Campbell's soup have an action against Andy Warhol? Probably not. They're not going to try to sell a painting, and no one's going to be confused about who made that painting available. Hermès, on the other hand, easily could decide that they want to start selling NFTs of their own bags. And this creates confusion in the marketplace about whose asset this actually is, who owns the asset. I'm not a lawyer, but I have dealt with this sort of thing as a communicator working with lawyers, that I am reasonably confident that he will lose. The artist will lose this case if it goes as far as
if it goes as far as that. It is interesting what Hermès does or has is in its hands the copyright of a physical good, and this is a derivative work. Again, caveat here: I'm not a lawyer either, Shell, as you know. But what I found, one of the things interesting about what people are saying about this in the High Snobiety site, which quotes quite a bit from the Fashion Law article on this very topic, and that Fashion Law piece is worth reading. It's long, but it's actually written well. High Snobiety says, quoting Fashion Law, Hermès might still have the upper hand as the brand does not yet exist in the metaverse, which means that as a trademark holder, they could potentially shut down unauthorized use of their trademarks when used for competition. And that last bit is interesting because arguably the artist Mason Rothchild isn't competing with them. But who knows if his NFTs of Hermès's property take off, then and Hermès has ideas to do this, then that is competition, right? Again, these are legal arguments, I suspect. But they quote, again, Fashion Law's quote, trademark holders can legally prevent others from using their mark or a mark that is similar to theirs on related goods or services. So I would say this is a great one for lawyers to debate, but something needs to emerge out of this because this will happen again, I'm pretty certain.
Oh, undoubtedly. And I invoked Disney a little bit ago. What if this artist had chosen to put Mickey Mouse up there, or characters from other Disney-owned properties, Marvel characters, Star Wars characters, Simpsons characters? Well, Disney is selling NFTs of those characters.
Right.
And I think they would take a dim view of it if somebody else were out there doing the same thing. Now, there is another dimension of this to consider. If you look at Star Wars and The Simpsons as examples, both before Disney owned them, so I don't know how Disney's legal department would interpret this, but there were decisions made to let fan art propagate as a way to encourage the continued fandom around these things. They said, look, if people are going to do Star Wars fan fiction and Star Wars art, let them, because that's just marketing that we don't have to pay for. And the same thing around The Simpsons. In fact, I think The Simpsons was doing takedowns and they finally said, wait a minute, this is dumb. Let's let them do it.
Yeah.
The Grateful Dead, my favorite band, as a lot of people know, grew their fan base by letting people do things with their multiple logos. So there's a case to be made for allowing it, but it is still up to the trademark holder to decide to allow it.
You got it. I think the landscape has shifted, and it's shifted it's accelerating that shift, I would argue. There's an interesting point to make on that, which is all embracing really, is a further element in what the fashion law is talking about. They say, this is their kind of concluding statement. Actually, it's not really concluding because there's a good 10 paragraphs after this statement. But it says, it seems safe to say at this point that the Hermès case and others like it may be relatively straightforward in some respects. For example, the trademark rights at the heart of these virtually focused suits may not be drastically different from the ones that brands point to in cases over tangible goods. The rights and registrations that brands have amassed in connection with their core real-world business activities, such as marketing and selling garments and accessories at retail, including by way of e-commerce, very well may extend to related endeavors in the metaverse. It's worth noting, they say, that Hermès points to a handful of its existing registrations across 20 classes of goods and services in its complaint, none of which are metaverse-specific. So this is good old-fashioned law at work here, it seems to me, Shel.
Yeah, and just to point to the penultimate paragraph in the artist Mason Rothchild's letter to Hermès, he says, there is a moving tide of innovation and evolution, and it is your role as a fashion powerhouse to amplify young creatives and artists rather than stomp them out. Your actions can help determine the future of art in the metaverse. You can be part of an incredible movement. They can be, but they don't have to be, is the ultimate point.
It is. And with that note, let's say stay tuned, dear listeners, because you can be sure we'll be talking about this again soon.
Absolutely. And that will be a 30 for this episode of For Immediate Release.